I mean, you know why this existed, right?
I don't.
Because when it was on the newsstand, they would tile up the comics like this, and then you'd still be able to see what issue, what book, and who the characters were.
Nice.
So, like, when they display them, you know?
I didn't know that.
And that's what the purpose of this was.
And this is different, too, right? This was, like, at mass market.
Right.
The UBC code, but this was for comic shops?
Exactly. Yeah, there were, like, direct sales and like, anytime you have retailers.
Yeah.
Yeah, first comic books ever. So I brought mine. Turns out McLeod was all over. Bob McLeod was all over my.
He's an inker? Or
I think he just did the cover here. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, wild, right? First comic. So do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
It doesn't matter. I was just going through, I was just going through the
These are adorable. Your books are adorable.
This is a hilarious, like, side by side.
My books are mean as hell. It's like Punisher, guys with guns. Look, this was one of the first books I ever got, and it's a guy holding a gun to a kid's head.
Do you remember how old you were when you got that?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly. I was 10 when I got this.
You got this at a comic shop, yeah?
Yes. 10 years old, Punisher 42.
Okay.
You know, I would get the Punisher War Journal later, and, you know, oh my God, the Punisher's drawings of guns, you know, playing with G.I. Joe guys.
Yeah.
What a product of the United States of America, thinking that
Comics for
guns
kids
are cool.
Yeah.
Right? Our country, constantly at war, exports violent media. No surprise there. What are the kids playing with? Little soldiers.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's not unique in history. I think all kids probably play with soldiers.
I mean, especially, I don't want to gender anyone or anything, but I think there is throughout time a history of a large percentage of young boys gravitate towards, like, fight games.
Right. And, you know, somebody said something really interesting. I think it was Jane Austen. Nope, not Jane Austen. Not at all Jane Austen. Who's the gorilla lady?
The gorilla
Jane...
lady?
Yeah, she went
Fonda.
No, not Jane
Goodall.
Fonda. Jane Goodall, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Jane Goodall, after studying chimps, came up with something because the
Wait, Jane Austen, gorilla.
I like that it went
expert.
Jane Austen, Jane Fonda, Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall discovered that because the male chimps were not involved in the birthing process, they would immediately leave the female impregnated and go play games. And they would play war games.
Whoa.
So this is like endemic to this, you know, to the species.
Yeah.
Like, it's part of our DNA.
That's wild.
That, like, because the male of the species is not involved in the birthing process, or so briefly involved.
Yeah. Now it's like, now it would be like the husband or the male mate would just be off playing, like, video games.
Yeah, or Magic the Gathering.
You do it, honey. I gotta play Magic the Gathering.
I play Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, clarify that as.
Let me just show you this one.
Punching down, not up.
Yeah, I'm punching down.
I mean, punch up, not down.
I'm punching up. Let me show you something here. Jim Lee pencils. My man Carl Potts on the story, and look, he gave me a little
hell yeah
signature from Carl Potts there. You know, I told Carl Potts, I said, Carl, this Punisher symbol, it's been appropriated.
Problematic, yeah.
It's terrible now. And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, law enforcement and military is using it as like a badge of honor to inflict their pain and cruelty across the entire human spectrum. And he's like, it was always supposed to be a cautionary tale. He's such a sweet, sweet man.
Aww.
He was like, this is like, don't do this.
Don't be Punisher.
The idea was like, don't be Punisher. And I'm like, I hate to tell you, bub, but that is not how it's working out.
It's just like subtlety like doesn't work.
Yeah. Subtlety doesn't work.
You know, you got to go way over the top with the satire, I think, in order for someone to understand that you're pointing at something and saying it's not good.
So you can see my interests were at this age.
So this, I think,
dudes with cool haircuts, guns, and swords.
Yeah, this might be a little. I might have been a little younger. So this is 88. So I was 5 when I got this.
Oh, okay.
5. I got this. My grandfather bought this for me at the 7-Eleven in Marlton, New Jersey, which used to have a spinner rack, which was like my favorite thing. So anytime he was like, I gotta go get some gas or snacks or whatever, I was like, let me go, because I wanted to look at the comic spinner rack.
I love that.
And these are pretty sick. And like I was actually just looking at these the other day, and there's a lot of like influence in kind of how I draw stuff that I think can be sourced back to this, even like subconsciously. Certain things like little specifically folds in fabric and stuff like that. Like I remember as a kid being like, oh, if you make a curve and you start the next line not at the end of that line but a little over, it looks like it's behind it. I still think about that every time I draw clothing or muscles or anything. Like when you draw the line and the next line starts like a little over, that's like behind it. It's going backwards. And I later learned that's basically contour drawing, because you're using these contours.
It's also layering. Like you're layering one thing behind the other, but the same is happening with the fist. And people have a hard time drawing hands, and for good reason. They're difficult, right? But you just explaining that is a great way. I'm going to use that when I explain it to the kids. Yeah. Because it's very like straightforward. It makes sense. I think it's simple enough where they can grasp it. Yeah, and it's depth, basically. You're basically showing that this section is behind that section. Actually, it also looks like a butt. Yeah, I guess I meant to say overlapping.
Yeah,
overlapping shapes. Right.
But that's how depth works, too. Like, if you're drawing this werewolf arm, it stops when it gets to the thing that it's behind. Exactly. And then maybe it comes back around. Anyway. But I used to draw these panels obsessively. Like, a lot of this stuff is, like, really burned into my mind forever. Because I would just draw these things over and over again. I
always hated the blonde Egon. I never understood, why is he blonde in the comic? Like, it never made any sense to me.
I think it's because action figures and like the cartoon. I think
so
like
that they're all different.
So they're all different. Yeah. So they he couldn't just be like the nerd. He also had to like have insane yellow hair.
You know what else is funny about
this huge ninja guy? Yeah, I mean, Ghostbusters is kind of guns also. Like, I was obsessed with the blasters and stuff, and like, they're I think like the original Ghostbusters film, it's kind of a joke about like dicks. I think like the blasters are supposed to be like
don't cross the streams.
Yeah, it's basically their dicks, but
like everything also, is that. Like a gun is just a metal penis. Sure, yeah. It's just like
that's the title of the episode.
It works the same way. It's like, let me spray out my little invasive sperms to like break down your doors. It's like the ramming gate. It's the same. All the articles of war are the same thing. They're all shaped like dicks.
To assert that I'm the alpha dog. Of
the
pack.
Like I use a like a ram, like a battering ram, to bust down the castle doors, and then all my army invades. Just like, it's the same thing.
Totally.
Like, what are we talking about here? All the bombs, all the bullets, all the missiles—they're all shaped like dicks too. Thanks, George Carlin.
That's. I remember really liking this mummy with the face. Like I drew this mummy probably 400 times, or tried to. But I love that the face is like part of the bandages. I don't know. It's like some of these fun little characters.
That's cool.
It looks like
cartooning.
Yeah, it looks like it was fun to make these comics, and he's speaking in hieroglyphics. And yeah, it's great. I was obsessed with Ghostbusters at this time. But even just, I mean, these kinds of shadows, just great. It's just great cartooning, like you said. Like you get that little white line that separates those things, and you have the cast shadow and all this stuff.
Those play. Those shadows play.
But I thought these were really fun.
There's the real goat right there.
Yeah,
Chizuka.
Totally. So I was getting these Ghostbuster comics because I was obsessed with Ghostbusters. This one I thought was cool because it was like gangsters, and I thought gangsters were cool. So this was
sure.
The other cool thing about this was like I remember having at one point 5 comic books or 4 comic books. This was my entire collection, and so I read each of them over and over and over and over and over again. And I think that's something that's kind of like something I would recommend people do, and it's a thing that I want to do more of too. Is like, I get so many comics, especially since we started doing this show. I want to just like read everything and get everything from everybody. But rereading things and rewatching movies and redoing stuff is so valuable in getting beyond your initial experience of the thing into something that's like you can actually kind of assess it and break it apart in interesting ways when you revisit these things. And that just, as a kid, that just grafts, it just burns into your retinas and your brain.
So, I think as you grow up, you have like a complicated relationship with your father. It like, not you necessarily, but anybody like me,
all parents,
like with whomever. And I remember like thinking many different things about my dad. And when I was looking through this stack of comics, I go, my dad was awesome. Like, not only did he buy me...
Look like that? Did he look like Ant-Man?
No, he did not. My dad kind of looks like Dennis Leary. So my dad was awesome, and not just because he bought me comics, of which I was like very grateful when I was looking through this. I was like, wow, he just bought me whatever comics I wanted. I was like, and this wasn't cheap at that time, right?
Yeah.
So, no, my dad was awesome for other reasons, which is he put different types of things in my wake, and one of them was Tintin, and I was actually really upset because I don't have any asterisks.
Okay.
But Asterix and Tintin were my very first books that I ever read. Like, cartoons, comics, or otherwise. Like,
I saw the Asterix movie as a kid. I've never read any Asterix comics.
my dad had these folio versions from when he was a kid,
Yeah.
and I got to look at Tintin and Asterix first before I ever looked at American comics.
This is in English, yeah.
Yeah. And so, obviously, Tintin, very famous, and Asterix. I sadly don't have any Asterix in my collection, which is a gaping hole, and I want to get some. But when we do this video, we need to absolutely put some Asterix up images, because that more than anything, I think, influences my cartooning.
Oh,
that
interesting.
style, like that, I looked at that and it was so bouncy and fun, and I was just like,
and
round and like old fashioned with their like stocking feet, you know, those like little like old style shoes. But my dad put other stuff in front of me too, like Frazetta, Von Baudet.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to show that. And then one of the other comics he really liked, which I got at a young age, was Nexus.
So how old were you when he gave you the Frazetta book?
Well, Frazetta was something I always had in my rotation, because my dad would read me The Hobbit as my bedtime story.
Okay.
And Frazetta has a bunch of Hobbit art. And here is some of it.
Oh, right.
So, like, Gollum. So, Frazetta was one of the first artists that I encountered. In this book, you can see is well loved. It's totally falling apart.
Yeah. Did we look at this on the fantasy?
We probably did, but you know, the reason why the Ring Wraiths and the Death Dealer,
They're so fucking awesome.
and this was the first art probably that I ever saw, because it was attached to The Hobbit.
Okay.
And so my dad's reading me The Hobbit when I'm like, I mean, the pages are all coming out.
Yeah, I'm trying to hold it.
It's fine. I'll get another version of this at some point, but I got this directly from the Frazetta family too. So you can reach out to them. They have a museum, and
Yeah, I want
a
it. It's
store.
in Pittsburgh, isn't it?
Yeah, we should go. It's in Philly.
Oh, Philly.
Oh, no, not
it's
Philadelphia.
in Pennsylvania.
It's in Pennsylvania. That's what I meant to say.
I would love to get it.
But yeah, we should go do a road trip. So this was some of the first art I ever saw, and that's thanks to my dad. And I think this also has a huge influence on the way that I draw, and like what I think is good, quote unquote, or at least when I was a kid, what I thought was good.
This is easy for kids. Kids always gravitate at first to, like, if it looks real, it's good.
Yeah, exactly.
If it looks like a real thing that could have happened, or it looks like real people or real whatever, that means it's good.
In my defense, he's also just a master of the form. He has like a Renaissance level ability. And look, I mean, in here we see some of his sequential art, which we didn't see a lot of.
Right.
I didn't see any of this until I was an adult. Anyway, so props to my dad for not only for buying comics, but for putting really cool art in front of me. Hergé, Tintin, and all the Asterix stuff. Really cool.
That's awesome.
Oh, and not to be... Yeah, let's look at this Von Baudet for a second.
I don't think we've looked
This
at
was another favorite of my dad's. He really liked that character, Cheech Wizard.
Yeah.
And so this is a book that... this came out in like 88, I think. So same year as the Ghostbusters, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the same year, less mainstream, is like this.
$250. That's your indie market.
That's your indie price. Yeah. You know, Joe Koch credits Von Baudet as inventing the bubble letters.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Which
It
is
might be
cool.
a stretch, but
I don't know what came first. But this is cool. It also is like laid out this way, which I think is interesting for the form, but you're probably working against yourself because nobody wants to turn a book. I mean, it really comes to like, why are you changing the orientation
I kind of hate horizontal comics.
I think if you're going to do horizontal, then do it all horizontal.
Yeah.
Don't change the orientation. It's like, that's like recording a film like portrait and then switching to landscape halfway. You know what I mean? I mean, it is. It's like, let me turn the camera sideways and now shoot the middle of the film landscape.
Yeah. That reminds me
I mean, the cartooning is awesome. Don't get me wrong. Like, I can't take anything from Baudet. The work is amazing.
It's great.
I'm just commenting on this one little choice, which is the format.
I just saw it this morning.
So that, Baudet, and then Steve Rude the Dude. Nexus. Steve Rude's Nexus series is probably one of my favorite. Steve Rude's Nexus is unbelievable. You get the Frazetta influence that you see, just that we saw previously. We get that with Rude. We also get you know, some Kirby influence, some Buscema. You get like classic comics. So this is one of the first comic series that I would get. This mini.
I've never read this before.
Oh my god, I
Steve
love
Rude also did Superman for a while.
Nexus is unbelievable. I don't know all of Steve Rude's credits, but I know he's worked with Mike Barron of Badger.
Oh, right. Wait, what's at the front? Is it like a water inside front? Like watercolor?
Yeah, they're like.
Oh, those are sweet.
It's like
a pencil and watercolor.
Looks like coquille board. Yeah, pencil and some kind of coloring. But you can see he does these giant paintings too.
Beautiful.
Yeah, he's very talented. So, I mean, this was another big influence on me for like the degree to which it's finished. Like the inventiveness on every page is great.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good at breaking the panels up and experimenting with the form.
Yeah, another master of like anatomy. So it seems like you gravitated towards like figure.
Classic kid stuff.
Classic kid figure stuff.
Classic kid stuff. Guns, figures, you know, classic comics. This is just like what I thought was good. Yeah. And that, you know, that takes a while to unlearn, I think.
Yeah, or to
expand
upon. Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at this when I'm like 8 years old, you know, this even earlier, Frazetta. And, you know, but I still had love for stuff like this, which I would say Tintin is much simpler, you know, much more.
Yeah, and
much more like, bande dessinée, like, you know.
Well, it's also, these are more exaggerated forms, like the little legs. And
cartoony. Yeah. And very European, like very, very.
I love there's only in a Tintin comic would you see a huge house explosion as the same size panel as like everything else on the page. No room for exaggeration. And
then of course we talked at great length, but I got this book when I was a really young boy. So this has a huge influence on me
and
too.
The opposite of Frazetta.
And just just graining in general had a huge influence on my whole trajectory. Same. So that's that.
I still think of Simpsons faces when I draw expressions.
But these are the two comics that were my first ever comic books that I bought myself or were bought for me. I got this in the grocery store. Yeah. And it was in the checkout. And I got it because my name is Nick and there was a giant N on it. Honestly.
So you thought it was like Nick the Man.
Nick the Man.
Nick the Man.
This book appealed to me for so many reasons. You have to remember,
it's
like,
an awesome cover.
It's
all things considered.
Basically Steven Seagal, kind of like, it's Larry Hama on the script, so it's going to read like a G.I. Joe comic. Yeah. It's got a guy with a katana and an AK-47. I mean, he's no shirt, slick back hair.
Yep.
I mean, it's
high-waisted pants.
Unbelievable. Yeah, like this, like gi, almost like a gi. It feels like, and it was ninjas. I mean, at that time, that was the coolest word. If you put ninja on something, it meant it was amazing.
Yeah, that's actually a good segue.
I'm like 8.
My next comic books, which were Ninja Turtles.
Oh, I love this Eastman Kirby Crackle.
Yeah,
the rectangular
it's like a square.
Kirby Crackle.
Yeah. So the first one of these I ever got was this one, which another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was like when you're a kid, you start at book 20. Or, you know, you enter into these stories a lot of times. I guess you have the first one of these here, but
wherever you do. Yeah,
a lot of this stuff I was just like, I like Ninja Turtles the show. What's the comic all about?
And that's the one you got.
So this is the one I got. So 89.
I love this.
6 when I got this, and this like blew my mind apart because it is very dark. Like this story is not. First of all, look at this fucking drawing. It's
so cool,
incredible,
unbelievable. Really going for it by now too.
Is this Eric Talbot? I think
the Turtle Boys. Is it Talbot?
I think this is Eric Talbot. I think so. It's not. I don't think it's Eastman Laird.
Right, because they don't have time anymore. They got the show.
Yeah, they had other shit going on.
Oh, Melting Pot.
Yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
Layouts Peter. Oh no, Jim Lawson. Inks Eric Talbot. Yeah.
But Laird's doing the drawing.
Well, story Eastman and Laird, layouts Laird.
Oh, I thought that's an art. That's his and.
Pencils Jim Lawson, inks Eric Talbot.
Got it.
But you can tell those inks right away. But anyway, I just thought this was so cool, and this is something that I want to emulate at some point. Is like, I opened up this book and I was like, that's not a Ninja Turtle. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And then you're like, they're in the sewers with this Triceratops guy, and I had no fucking idea what was going on.
But wait, go back a page for a second. Like, you have no idea what's going on because this all is like the same tone.
Well,
like,
so
that's
visually, it's
crazy hard to like to read. I can see the turtle, but then all this is just like mush.
Yeah, the panel borders are really hard to see. Although it's better over here because they're white.
Yeah. I guess you learn as you go.
But I just loved. Actually, wait a minute. I'm saying this wrong. This was the first one. I got this one before that.
Look at that guy.
This is 19.
Oh, he's so cute.
Yeah, so I opened this up and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
That's
Raphael's
awesome.
like all fucked up. Is this also the same artist?
It's not that far apart, so.
Yeah, Lawson. Oh no, inks Peter Laird. That's interesting. Layouts Kevin Eastman, so they switched. I guess they were switching off. They had a little team going here. Anyway, Raphael's in the tunnels, whatever. But this whole thing is like
more.
Me too. They're cleaner. But he's like all fucked up in the tunnel, and then it flashes back a little bit. But then they have like a fight, and it's all very serious. You know, the cartoon is like very silly.
Cowabunga dudes.
Cowabunga dudes, like this is very serious and dark, and like they're fighting each other. They have like an actual fight. Like you never see them fist fight in the cartoon, and so they were like, this was like a whole other world. I was like, is this the real? Like I actually drew on this page. I think I felt like he should be groaning. So I wrote groan. I remember doing that. I love that in school.
I love this old newsprint. Like experience of this is way cooler to me.
Totally.
And I never got any of these comics. I wish I would have.
So I got this one at a comic shop. I don't know if I had this one. I bet I drew this a million times too. Like
this is cool too.
That whip through there. Yeah, the action in this is fucking great. Awesome. The one thing I love too about these black and white Ninja Turtle comics is that they're not afraid to do a small panel close up where you're not totally sure what's going on, right? Because that's how action works. Like I don't know what exactly is happening here, but you're just like interjecting a little cool, and it's like pause. You know, the pacing is perfect. You get this nice pause in the air, and then pop, pop, pop.
Yeah, and fights are messy. Yeah, like they're not
slick.
You can't always tell what's happening.
Totally. So I thought the fighting in this was great.
That's awesome. Too.
I bet I read this comic.
That's so good.
I don't know 100 times over the course of my childhood.
I love it.
Like this stuff is like really, really burned in there. But I was so struck by the tone of it and how different it was from the Ninja Turtle thing I was familiar with, and then I was like, oh, there are ways to experiment beyond. Again, that's Tracy Art's picture, but
yeah, that's so cool.
You know, your thing doesn't have to be one thing. I remember having an early feeling of like your story doesn't have to just be one thing and one tone. And then I actually have more of these Ninja Turtle, the Eastman and Laird ones at my parents' house, because they get wildly different. Like once they finish this Return to New York book, it gets very silly. Like there's one drawn by this guy like Tom McWeeny, where aliens come and they like, abduct people and stuff like that. And this one actually is drawn by Matt Howarth. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy at all, but like this one's very different. Like look at this style.
Oh sure.
This is 41. So
20.
I don't know what happens between 20 those 20 issues, but
they're
this
trying
is like
out different guys.
Extremely different. It basically becomes like a kind of anthology book. Like whoever's drawing it gets to just make it whatever they want.
Did you say Tom McWeeny?
Yeah, I think his name is Tom McWeeny. Oh, I love this panel.
No accident that he became a cartoon.
Yeah. That might be a pen name. I bet I drew this panel a million times. The guy stabs the side through his head.
One of my students actually said that to me. I'm a big fan of senseless violence. They're like, I only want to draw senseless violence. And I was like,
senseless violence and sensibility.
And I'm like, you're in the wrong class because we're gonna draw our feelings.
Yeah. So I went from Ghostbusters to Ninja Turtles, to Usagi Yojimbo because that was like.
Oh, that makes sense.
That was like a Ninja Turtle adjacent. But then Stan Sakai's drawing.
I love that kind of hatching and texturing.
Like this cartooning style is way different from that.
Totally.
You know, Eric Talbot inking stuff. But
I always liked Sakai.
Yeah, it's just really, really cool stuff.
It's clean. I don't know. I always like that stuff a lot.
Yeah, but I only had a few. So I had like the Color Special, number 10 and number 32. But I read those three comics over and over and over and over again. So it's I don't know. I've always been a fan of this kind of like
less is more.
Less is more, but also like there's a part of me that wants to like start a TV show in the middle of season 2. Like I'm curious, do you really need all this build up? Do you really need all this time? Like there's something really nice about kind of asking yourself questions and filling in those gaps just by engaging and participating with the thing.
One of the things that interested me as a kid were miniseries, because I knew I couldn't get the whole run. So this was an early miniseries, and I've actually read this several times. This is written by Danny Fingeroth, who I had the pleasure of meeting only a couple weekends ago.
Oh, really?
I actually met him, yeah.
Oh, right, you got a drawing from him or something?
Well, that I got a drawing from Salakrup, but this is Fingeroth, who I also met. And this miniseries is just like, what if a bunch of the like B-tier Spider-Man villains teamed up and fought against Spider-Man? So you have this boomerang guy, you have this like beetle wasp guy, you got this water guy, this rhino guy, and this bass guy, right? But this was like a really, really fun miniseries.
I always love this guy's costume.
Shocker.
It was like a couch.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, like a quilted blanket.
Yeah,
or
I
something.
love
Yeah.
everyone. I just really like the way people draw that fabric. Anytime I've seen it, I'm like,
This-
that looks cool.
This was a miniseries I read many times and enjoyed it, so I highly recommend Deadly Foes of Spider-Man. Super fun little 4-parter. Fingeroth does a great job writing. The art's done by Milgram, I think. Al Milgram.
And somebody else.
Well, in this first one, it's Carrie Gamble,
Carrie Gamble.
which I don't really know that person very well. Yeah, Milgram and Gamble. So
Sweet.
really cool, fun stuff. And then I got this at some point because it was like all the rage in the comic shop. So this was an early comic for me, and I remember reading it and being like, "This is inappropriate."
This was a big deal because it had a boob in it.
Well, also like,
Like
Joker shoots.
Yeah,
I mean, this was really intense.
it was out. This is Alan Moore, right?
Yeah.
But this made the rounds at my elementary school. I think probably 5th or 6th grade. When did this come out? It came out in '88, so I didn't see it till much later. But I remember my friend, I think my friend Justin brought this in, and was like, "You like comic books? What about this shit?" And I was like, "Oh God, I don't think I should be looking at this."
So that's the 80s, and then we get into the 90s. And let me tell you about the 90s, folks. Do you like Troll? Do you like Jim Lee's Death Blow that you can't even see?
Oh wait, hang on. Before we get to Jim Lee's Death Blow, so I went from Ninja Turtles to X-Men.
Oh, yes.
So this was the first.
Good.
This was the first X-Men comic I ever owned, and it was a random one. Again, sorry to cut you off, but I felt like this
No,
was a
it's
good
fine.
segue.
Yeah.
Number 281. So I picked this up, maybe this was after the cartoon came out, or I don't remember how this started, but I remember this was the first X-Men
Can't
comic I
even
had.
see it here. Let's
number
look it up.
281. So like decades and 25 years have passed since the first X-Men comic.
A new team is born.
And I was just like, I loved the fact that I didn't know what was going on. I loved picking this up.
Uncanny.
Like this is Will Sportasio artwork, I believe.
Oh, I got Wils's solo book in here.
Wetworks.
Team 7, baby.
Wait, he drew Team 7?
Yeah, well, he at least did the cover.
Damn. But I love these weird Sentinels. I just like the fact that all this stuff was different from what I was familiar with.
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
something
that's
I
fair.
really have always craved. I think through my whole life is like, you think you're familiar with one thing, but then someone's doing it in a different way.
Tell me a new story. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought the artwork was really cool. It's like kind of proto Jim Lee, I guess, or maybe Wilson was responding to Jim Lee.
I think so, yeah.
Because that came out right around the same time as this.
I mean, they're all doing, like, they're all in these bullpens. They're all looking at each other's work, so
Yeah.
they're having influence
and they're all
on
inked
each
by
other.
Scott Williams.
Right, yeah.
So then I got the famous one, and I was obsessed with these.
Does this have the fold-out cover?
I have that one in the cabinet.
Oh, okay,
But
okay.
this one I bought before that one.
Right.
So and then I went to X-Men, and then the trajectory goes from there. But obviously this if anything had a single giant impact, the biggest impact on my childhood and life comic book wise, it's Jim Lee X-Men. I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I drew these pages.
Another thing about Jim Lee, really quickly, is that Carl discovered him and brought him on. And the first book that Jim Lee worked on was Punisher, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, it might not be this issue, but it was Punisher War Journal. It was Jim Lee's first book.
Did he draw that one?
Yes. So this is all Jim Lee. And
I mean, it looks fucking awesome.
It's so good.
You can't deny the appeal of the Jim Lee page.
Here's the thing about Jim Lee that I'll say is that his figures look pretty stiff and plastic.
Totally.
But
They look cool though.
But to me, who was like a teen or whatever, and so here he's responding in Death Blow. I think he's responding to Frank Miller.
Oh, 100%.
So like he's like trying to do his best for Miller. But let's talk about Wildcats for a second, because I have Wildcats #1.
I have those all at my parents' house too.
And I wanted to make sure to bring as much image stuff as I could, because that is what happens. It's like
Do you have #2? That was the rare one.
I have all of
hologram.
I have Wildcats 1 through 15 or something.
Sideways
Voodoo.
layout.
But yeah, I mean, to my like 11-year-old brain or whatever,
coolest thing
this
ever.
was the coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah.
And because these
that
drawings
shit
are
rules.
bananas.
Yeah.
Like, I still think, like, stiff, yes, but awesome.
But they're awesome.
Like, they're so cool.
And
Like,
even
I still like
the way
it.
he draws like gear.
Yeah,
Anytime there's like a
yeah.
SWAT team or something come in, they're all wearing the coolest gear.
Man, I always loved Jim Lee drawings.
and that's a great face. And that's a heroic face.
You said you drew stuff a billion times. I probably drew this face a billion times.
This is cool too. This really long flat panel. Like this is an interesting page layout.
I never realized like how manga his eyes are.
Yeah,
in certain spots anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim Lee is a merging of Eastern and Western styles in a lot of ways.
You talk about good panels. I remember reading this and just being like,
yeah,
dude,
those pages
what?
Those pages are nuts.
The layouts in this I mean, you could really tell he was going for it. Like, he was like, I'm putting it all on the page.
Yeah, and there's a reason. Sometimes more contemporary comics, they put a splash page in just for the hell of it and to fill space. To this, it feels like pacing-wise. Maybe I'm just... There's no way for me to be objective about this because I read it 100 million times as a kid. But, like, this is fucking amazing.
So
like,
good.
It's so cool.
Yeah,
The colors are great. The pose is great.
This is awesome, too.
It's full of momentum.
Like, it really is.
It's so... I mean, it's great.
Here's the thing, like, you know, like Lauren Michaels says your favorite SNL is the one you watch when you're going through adolescence.
Yeah, totally.
The same is true for comics. Yeah. Whatever comics were in front of you when you were going through your adolescence,
so great.
Those are your favorite ones. And you know what? This has a really special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Because this is what I had in my hands when I was going through adolescence. This is what got me into comics.
This is who I want to be as a person.
I mean, it's all the, you know, they always end up in two places. At a pool or beach.
Yeah.
And in the danger room,
right? Or what I always love when the X-Men play sports, like there's, I think it's issue 3 or 4. They play basketball against each other. I mean, and they start cheating with their powers. And it's great.
So good. I mean, whatever.
I wouldn't say these are my favorite comics, but in terms of something that left the biggest imprint, this is it.
Yeah, I don't think favorite. That's not the word that I find, you know, most useful in this situation. I just mean like the imprint.
Yeah.
It leaves the greatest imprint on your mind because your mind is still developing when you encounter it. So like when I look back at this, I'm not like, oh, it's the best comic. No, it's not even close to my favorite comic.
Yeah.
But it left the biggest impression on my brain. Like that thing, what the fuck?
I think it also coincides too, especially with comics for me. Hell yeah. I think for comics for me, I think
I paid $2.50 for it.
Nice, dude. You probably pay less for it now.
Go ahead. You were saying comics for you?
Oh, I was going to say, comics for me also as a kid coincide with like, because when you're a kid for a little while, you do, first off, you do whatever your parents tell you to do, right? So they're like, here's food that you need to eat. Here's stuff you're going to watch. Here's whatever. And then at a certain point, you get friends.
What's this doing in here? Yeah.
At a certain point, you get friends. And then your friends are starting to like, you know, now you're all watching some of the same stuff, but it's mostly given to you by your parents. And I think for me, discovering comics was the first time I was like making choices about the things that I was looking at and seeing. And it was not, these were not things that were given to me. It was like, oh, go to the comic shop and pick out some stuff. Dude, this comic, it like really blew my mind as a kid.
Really?
It's disgusting.
We'll pull this out in a second.
It is so fucking gross. But damn, you got all these number ones. But I think something special about this too was like I picked this. Like I thought this looked cool, and I picked this. So it's the burgeoning, developing sense of like taste, I guess, of like this is what I'm interested in, and that moment I think is huge when you're like making choices for yourself. And
you got Shaman's Tears
I don't
number
have
one.
Shaman's Tears. That's a deep cut. I didn't know you had all these number ones.
I don't just have the number ones. I have runs of each of these comics.
Wow.
Some of the lesser known ones, like I only got one of these, but like all this other stuff, like I have usually 1 through 5. Spawn was my favorite comic.
Spawn's still going, isn't it?
Yeah, he did like issues. He's in the up above 300.
Yeah,
up above 300.
He's just trying to beat Dave Sim.
Yeah, exactly. But Spawn was a comic that I drew over and over and over again, for sure.
Do you have the Dave Sim issue of Spawn? I think it's issue 9 or 19.
I have 1 through 45 of Spawn.
Okay. I think maybe it's written by Neil Gaiman. And
the thing is, like, I don't really like love. I mean, that's fucking cool, but like,
I was never a McFarlane.
I'm not like a huge stand for McFarlane, and most of it was because they never had any structure. It was always just like blobby with like lots of tiny little lines, and also like this page doesn't look cool. To me, when I was a kid,
compare this.
Compare this even page. Those,
I don't remember.
That's fine.
But like some of these pages look good. Yeah, or that's like a throwaway page.
Right. There was always a lot of empty air. I remember even as a kid, and when I would compare these pages to Jim Lee, I just liked Jim Lee's more.
Yeah. Same.
So for me, I was never like, but there was something appealing about Spawn as a character because he had all of my favorite things. He's got Doctor Strange's cape. He's got Ghost Rider's skulls and chains. He's Spider-Man's mask.
Cable's pockets.
Cable's pockets. He's like an amalgam.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of slowly came to realize about the Image guys. They were just doing their versions of their favorite comics, right? Like,
but the Max, I think, is maybe idiosyncratic.
Well, it was very weird. Yeah, the Max always was like a step outside because remember it would be on Liquid Television, those cartoons, and those were so weird.
So Liquid Television. Talk about leaving an imprint. Like things like Aeon Flux, like shifted my mind.
Let's do a Liquid Television episode where we talk about clips. We'll figure it out. Okay. But like this is just, I mean, this
first
is
exciting issue. We're telling you it's exciting.
Yeah, it's a team book. You know, it's like Jim Lee goes from, or Rob Liefeld goes from New Mutants, and then he does Youngblood. It's New Mutants again. Mm-hmm. And Jim Lee, when he goes from X-Men to Wildcats, guess what? It's X-Men again. And that's what my kid brain figured out. I was like, oh, they're just redoing everything again. And Spawn just felt like...
Wait, you want the real heat.
Oh, hell yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, well, that's what's up. That's probably worth money.
No, it's not. It's because they printed 900 million of these. It's not worth anything.
Well, that's why I brought all these up here. I'm like, I don't care about any of these.
I went to in Beacon. I went to a flea market they had, and I went into a long box somebody had, and they had like 15 of these in the bag with the card that came with it, and each one was like $3.
Hell yeah!
I was like, they're just massively overprinted all that shit.
I brought this, which is a totally different thing. But this was one of my early loves, was Ghost Rider, because
which we're reading for a club this week. I have never read a Ghost Rider book.
This is a reprint of the first comic that we're reading for club, actually. So,
would you say Teixeira?
Teixeira, yeah.
I love that guy's artwork.
Me too. I loved him.
I have a Wolverine.
I thought he was amazing.
So many lines.
I just loved his steez. So he did the cover for this, but I didn't realize the Devil makes an appearance in issue 1 of Ghost Rider. Which was Marvel Spotlight number 5.
I've never read a Ghost Rider.
This is it. This is the first one.
I'm excited to dig into these.
So that was cool. I brought that too.
Sweet. So when did you draw from these? Because I know you didn't make comics as a kid, but did you draw drawings from these books?
Yes, I did. In fact, I would copy the Image guys a lot. Yeah. I would copy Jim Lee. I think I copied panels from this for my first ever comic that I did in, I want to say high school. Mm-hmm. I copied a bunch of panels from this and put it in my own order. Okay. And it was like a one strip, like, you know, there's a bomb in the building, it's gonna go off. Mm-hmm. And like I just copied a bunch of panels from this. Like this is probably one of the panels I copied or something, you know? Mm-hmm. So I would draw Jim Lee stuff over and over again, and I would draw Spawn. But that was what was cool. So even the like jocks thought that Spawn was cool.
Oh yeah. Well, also like if you brought one of these books to school, you were the man for that day.
For sure.
I think it's this one. This is the one where they all die in like
incredibly
violent ways.
Oh, I didn't realize.
I think so.
I've always heard about it, and then I never realized which comic it was.
I'm pretty sure it's this one, because this was like bagged in the shop. It was like you like weren't allowed to look at it. Or no, actually, you know what? This is not the one. The one I'm thinking of is Supreme shows up and rips everyone to pieces.
I see. Oh, Trencher. There's that Trencher.
Oh, that's something.
That is gnarly.
Supreme, I think it's Supreme versus Bloodstrike.
Okay.
Supreme shows up, but like I remember looking at this at someone's house, that particular issue, he's like ripping people in half. He's like punching their intestines out and stuff. I was like, how is this
how can you do
how
this?
Is this possible? Yeah. This should be like illegal. As a 10-year-old, I was like, I was titillated by it. I wanted to look at it, but I was also like, I don't feel like I should be looking at this.
You know, one of the things that comes out of all these books for me is that I immediately am disinterested with violence. When I'm about 11, I stopped playing with action figures, like with G.I. Joe dolls. Mm-hmm. I just stopped. I don't care about it anymore. Well,
that's interesting. I had the opposite approach. I went deeper. I was like, show me the most violent shit imaginable. But not doing it. I've never been a violent person. Yeah. I want to see extremity, I guess. Like I'm interested in it.
Yeah, I guess I just like... Yeah, I don't know.
Look at the difference of this Ninja Turtle comic. So this was another thing I was into, was Ninja Turtles Adventures, which I think was based on a lot of times what would happen is like something would come out, then they do a cartoon version of the thing, and then they do a comic based on the cartoon. Which I think that's what the Ghostbuster comic was, but this was a comic based on the...
Well, it's like night and day.
Ninja Turtle cartoon.
I mean, let's just not bury the lead. Let's get into Shaman's Tears, because the audience is dying to know what Mike Grell's Shaman's Tears. Yeah, not problematic imagery at all. You know, not.
I'm more offended by the coloring. I think
the coloring is wretched. But you know what's funny?
Holy shit!
It's just
he did a loop.
It's a smoothie.
He did a flip.
He's making a nice sauce.
That's not problematic either.
I'm an Italian American. I can do impressions of Italian American.
It's me, Shaman's Tears.
Hey, I'm making a nice sauce in space.
Got nudity in this one.
Oh. Immediately, Mike's like, wait, butts? There's a boob for you there too, Mikey.
I am who I am.
You know what's interesting is that I was looking at these. Let's bring out a good example. What's a good example? Troll number 1.
We read that for club. That comic is terrible.
The old Troll number 1.
It's so bad.
Here's the deal. This is what Image comics looked like to differentiate themselves from Marvel, and now you look at a modern Marvel comic and it looks like an Image comic from the 90s.
It's just, everything's like so brown.
Yeah, well, everything's super brown.
Is disgusting.
Super brown. Also, like, let's draw Wolverine, but let's make him small.
Smaller. He still smokes cigars.
Let's make small Wolverine. If I saw that guy buy some boxes in an alleyway, I mean, there's, green stuff coming out of
his last name is Troll.
Bartholomew J. Troll at your
But they're also using Bart, so it's like he's part Bart,
Yeah.
part Wolverine. Just take two pop cultural things and smush them together.
I mean, come on, this is total trash.
It's awesome though. I mean, you gotta look at it from a
it is hilarious.
Absurdist point.
Did you ever see when they redid Prophet?
I didn't just see it. I read it. I loved it.
I loved it too.
People have issues with Brandon Graham, whatever, but
Yeah.
the more recent Prophet like reboot thing is fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was really
There's
great.
so many ideas.
It's really creative.
Happening in that, and the artists are so great, like Farrell Dalrymple. And
Yep.
Simon, what's his name?
And then I wonder, is any of that in the original comic?
I'm curious. I've never read the original.
It doesn't look like it.
But I love the idea. It's almost like if you took like, what's a stupid movie? What's like a bad kids movie?
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Honey, I Shrunk the Kids kind of good. What's the stupid?
I was just saying that because that was on the back.
Let's say Sonic. It's like if you took like Sonic, the intellectual property, and you were like, all right, Paul Thomas Anderson or Stanley Kubrick, you're gonna make a Sonic movie.
Yeah,
that's kind of how I feel about the Prophet comic. It's like this intellectual property business has no business being turned into something like thoughtful and like heartfelt.
This is great sci-fi.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, and it thinks enormously. Like there are massive ideas in that book.
So I think of all the books that exist from Image, I think these are two of the ones that I remember the most fondly as being like the most mature. This one for its surreal nature, and then this one for being like the most well put together comic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't read any of it since I was a kid.
I always liked Sam Keith because he drew Harry Wolverine.
Sure.
I always enjoyed Harry, like, dirty Wolverine.
But, like, this looks good. You got a little Miller bandages,
What did Eric Larson work on before Savage Dragon? He's someone
he was on the Hulk, right? I thought?
Maybe? I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But he's an artist I'm not familiar with at all. I have no Eric Larson experience whatsoever.
Well, someone told me recently that this book turns into like a weird porn comic.
Oh, it gets really X-rated, but not until issue like 250. It's like at a certain point he's like, you know what? Fuck it.
I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting how artists like sublimate through their work. And I think comics are an interesting medium for that because no one's really looking at you.
No one cares. Especially
nobody
now.
cares. Nobody cares.
Back then they were still getting some eyes on it and stuff, but like now no one gives a fuck.
What a weird outfit.
Yeah.
I mean, wear whatever you want. More power to you.
Sure.
But that's very strange. Vestments. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't have to talk about Image. This was cool because he broke someone's spine. Oh, yeah, awesome. This is cool because it's another team that looks terrible. Darker Image. Let's just put them all in there the same. Who's that guy?
That's a Bloodstrike guy, I think.
Oh, let's talk about the guy with 3 arms on one side, right?
Yeah, well, this is
sick,
funny because it's like it was like Cyclops became the Spartan guy from Wildcats, but then this is just another version of those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Like this team is the same fucking
There's
thing.
Wolverine again.
I mean, that looks cool though.
That is cool.
But also, this doesn't need to be a splash page. Like we were looking at those Jim Lee pages earlier, and there was actually a lot of information to show in those splash pages. That's just a big picture of a guy.
Hold on, let me shoot you thrice with one side of my body.
Yeah. The other funny thing, too, is, like, it would be interesting to talk about a guy's life who has 3 arms, but they were just like, what if he killed people with them? Yeah. The idea was always like, here's an interesting idea. What if they killed people with it?
Immediately, I'm like, does he have 3 dicks? 4 dicks? I mean, this is my local comic shop, Graham Crackers.
Oh, this is cool.
I'm from Illinois originally, so
Graham Crackers.
This is the little area from which I'm from, and Graham Crackers Comics. That's where I'd go with my dad. Shouts to my dad. So long ago, there's not even an area code on the phone number. Pretty interesting down here for the hotline.
Yeah, since we're talking about comic shops, I brought this back from my parents' house. This is my sixth grade yearbook.
Oh yeah, let's
do
it.
Get this on the air. So my comic shop was Brainstorm Comics in Frederick, Maryland.
Look at that cutie.
There's me.
Is that your drawing?
This
That
is
wasn't
my
in the
drawing.
original picture you sent me. Look, he's got
Yeah.
a Quicksilver logo
Quicksilver
necklace.
shirt. I'm wearing an Atlanta Braves hat, which doesn't make any sense because I was an Orioles fan, but whatever.
You knew.
But look, ambition to play baseball or draw comics. Posers to the back. But Brainstorm Comics was my
1983, he called
favorite.
his shot.
That's
He was
right.
like, I'm going to make comics with my life.
Okay, yeah. And also I drew the cover for this shit.
You drew the
I
cover?
drew the cover for the yearbook, yeah.
Sick.
It's the lunchroom
Whoa.
from 6th grade, 1995.
That's
There's
it.
like
No
there's
free
a fight.
seating.
There's a fight in the front.
What does that mean? No free seating.
So my memory of it is that we were allowed to sit wherever we want.
Oh, right. Okay.
As long as we were
Assigned
like
seats.
being good.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I think if we started to go crazy, they would
Got it.
assign us seats to keep us under control, which is still a thing we do in my school.
Wow.
I would love to hear other people's first comics ever. If you want to send us a message or post a comment or something, I want to hear like what was your first comic you ever read or saw or owned or bought?
The Gateway Comics. Let's see them in the comments below. You like that I said below?
The below our feet.
Below this image.
All right, should we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I'm all
right.
talked out.
Thank you for participating.
Later, y'all. Thanks for coming.
Adios.
Bye.
Toodles.